So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Friday, December the 8th, 2023. And our calling number is 563-999-3581 and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Excuse me. We'll give Michael just a moment to dial in. And I'll just say that I hope as everybody's getting ready for festivities, that you're staying connected to love and looking at all the opportunities that may come your way, getting together with family. We had a wonderful time last night. Well, actually, Michael had a meeting, so he didn't go, but my daughter-in-law's business is a marina, and they had a float in our local Christmas parade, and she needed people to walk and hand out leis and candy and things like that. So we were out there. We had to be there. The parade was supposed to start at 7. We got there just before 6. We didn't get home till almost 10 o'clock. And it was a chilly night here, but it was a lot of fun. And all the little kids sat on the boat as it went down the street, being pulled by a truck. And the rest of us were walking beside of it, and it was a Hawaiian theme, and actually the float got 2 awards last night, so that was pretty cool, and the kids had a lot of fun. And anyway, if you go to our website, I don't believe I've added anything new recently, but look around, and if you see a link or something that's not working, please drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. and let me know so I can get it fixed. We did send out a newsletter. If you are on our mailing list, you should have received it. I've gotten a couple of comments from some people, and most people really like getting the update of what we're doing and the updates on the website. And then a couple of people were like, oh, well, I don't read more than 160 words. So it's like, okay, I can't please everybody. That's the first email newsletter that I have sent out since March, so it's not like we're bombarding your mailbox for sure. And but anyway, I hope that read what you want, ignore the rest. It's kind of like getting a city newspaper. Some people just read the sports section, some look at the comics, some read the front page. But I don't know of anybody that reads the entire newspaper, so that's okay if you don't read the whole thing. But we put it all in there so that whatever you're interested in, we've got information about that particular topic. So I hope you enjoyed getting that and reading it. And if you didn't get it, that would mean that you're not on our mailing list. So you can do that easily. You can go to the website, whyagain.org, and down at the very bottom of the home page, there is a section that says, join our mailing list. It has a big red glowing heart, just like the heart that glows on the app. And so you click that and fill it out, and it automatically adds you to Constant Contact, which is the company that we use for mailing out our newsletter. And that's about all I know. So let me see where Michael is on joining us. If you have a question or a comment about anything that we've talked about lately or the recordings that we've played, or something new that you want to discuss, please press 1. If you're on another station where we can't see you, if you would dial in 563-999-3581 and then press 1. And a little hand goes up in the switchboard, and I know that you're not just among the other dozen or 20 that are listening to the show, and we do appreciate you being there listening. Seems like a lot of times people wait till the very last of the show to press 1, and then we don't have time to get all the questions in. Or you press 1 after somebody else, and whoever has the floor gets the floor until we're complete with them. So if you want to jump in there, press 1 now, and that'll put you right up top, because nobody has their hand up right at the moment. And let's see, what else is new? Aria was telling me yesterday that, I don't even know what brought it up, and she said, we're in Advent right now. And I said, tell me what that means. Just, seeing she goes to a private Catholic school, and so they celebrate those things. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, it means you're waiting for Christmas. It's like, okay. In Christian theology, it's looking for the second coming of Christ, the first season of the Christian church leading up to Christmas, including the 4 preceding Sundays, is called Advent. It's the beginning of a year in Western, I'm looking at Google, Christianity. The name was adapted from Latin, meaning the coming or the arrival. So anyway, she was a little bit right. She said it's waiting for Christmas. So, and she has an Advent calendar that she opens one door every day up until she gets to the 25th. So let me see if Michael's having technical difficulties here. He says it's being a little weird, but he's going to try it one more time to get in. Technology. So we are 6 minutes into the show, and I've just kind of been babbling along. What would you like to talk about? Coming up on the holiday season, is it a time that brings stuff up for you? Is it a trigger? Is there perhaps, a lot of people, they used to go to grandma and granddad's or to mom and dad's or whatever, and that generation's passed on, so it kind of seems like a period of time has vanished from your life, and you're what the culture calls missing that, and that brings up loss. So, if something like that's going on for you right now, coming into this season, press 1, let us support you. If you've got a blessing you'd like to share, press 1, tell us about it. And Michael's with us now, so I'm going to say welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted and honored that you're here. We get to play one more time. We were actually trying to figure out a way that we could bring in a conference that we were listening to today. You've heard us talk about, some of you have met Dr. John Lieurance at an intensive or two that he's done, and or maybe you met me at his center when I presented there in Sarasota, Florida. Anyway, he's got a really hot holistic conference going on at his center. John bought a property back about 2 years ago that he's converted to not only his practice space, but a teaching center for chiropractor, cutting edge chiropractic neurology. Just doing some really awesome stuff. Congratulations, John. And he had sent us a link to a conference that he's doing there today, and I was trying to see if there's a way we could link it in here, but it is not something we can do. However, I'm going to talk to him and see if we can perhaps convert his videos from this, as there's several different presenters just presenting. It's kind of like a walk through memory lane. Some of you have heard me talk in the past to a gentleman named V.E. Irons, who the last time he and I were on a conference platform together, he was 82 and presented his newborn baby. And this is a man who invented a program for cleansing the colon called the Kalima, something I used to, 40 years ago, I used to guide people through on a one-to-one basis. Some of the pieces of that process came up in the conference today, and just doing all kinds of different things that are holistically oriented and really cutting-edge stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to share that with you. I'll probably talk to John tonight or tomorrow and see if we can convert those videos to audio tracks that we can play on the show. I think you'll find it really, really interesting. And he's just doing cutting-edge stuff in the arena of physiology. And has a lineup of products. Go ahead, sweetie.
2 things. 1, move your microphone just a little because your breath is making your words kind of wispy. And
okay.
We have a hand
That
up.
better? Oh, great. Let's say hello to the hand.
Okay. I think it's Peter, and it's 619 area code. You're on the air.
Hi, Michael and Jeanie. Yeah, I was inspired by Jeanie's talk while you were fixing your equipment. She said something about, this time of the year, etc. And I'm working on the sheets and giving up goals, if I'm saying that right, canceling goals.
Right.
And one thing I've done for over 30 years for my kids and then my stepkids is always cook all the big holiday meals.
Right.
To try to replicate what I had as a kid with, 12 kids in my family. Big
Italian family.
Yep. So this year I didn't do anything. And the reason is I just felt like nobody cared. Nobody basically said thank you. Nobody appreciated. And I thought, I'm tired of doing this. So I didn't do it. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Question.
Yes.
How does that pattern of not caring fit in with your family system? Because if you recall, one of the conversations we had recently is you've reintroduced yourself to the work and made a choice to move in the direction of picking up your work on another level again, was you went through a whole thing about not caring. Like you were ready to just let it all go. So the progression of that and what that's all about might be a good piece of work to open the space not only for yourself but for your family system to heal that one.
Well, that's where I'm confused. That to me, canceling goals means giving up and not caring and moving on.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting one. Well, let's see if we can reframe that one, because that's a projection of that family pattern of not caring, I would offer. Because the reason for me, in the context of this conversation, the reason I would cancel a goal if I've got, let's say, a family member that I have upset with, the reason I would cancel a goal and clean up the upset in my mind would be because I do care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't bother. So the reality for me is the exact opposite. And, there's a point where 2,000 years ago they said to Yeshua, and I'm going to do an expanded version of the question, Yeshua, in this thing you're teaching us about how to be a human being, what's most important? I understand, Yeshua, there are laws for functioning as a human being. What's most important in the law? And he says, not love God, love neighbor as yourself, but he says have Rakhma for the Creator, for neighbor, and by so doing, you will maintain yourself or your human life. And how that fits into this conversation for me is that what he's saying is there's a gateway in you, which if it's open, it's called Rakhma. There's no such concept in the English language or the Latin or Greek through which most of the translations of his words come. There's just no such concept. There's a gateway in the frontal lobes of your brain called Rakhma, and if it's open, love presents itself in your mind and in your physiology because it is your essence, and you'll get to function as love. And that's where the tail end of that one, the Greeks translated as, love your neighbor as yourself. No, you maintain the love that you are. You maintain your human life by having this condition Rakhma in your mind. And the thing that seals it from us are things like not caring. Old realities, constructs of the mind of hostility, fear, whatever form they take, when they become active, tend to knock that filter out. Now, when I cancel a goal, there's no relationship to not caring, the canceling a goal, or leaving something behind or forgetting about it. The reason why I cancel a goal, let's say, for instance, caring, which is an awesome goal. I would say that it almost is, or no, I'll take the word almost out. It's a reflection. Caring is a reflection of our human lives. It's like part of the package of functioning as love is caring. And if our minds have been brainwashed through generational patterns, you remember they said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. If we've been brainwashed by those patterns, and one of those things is not caring, then I don't cancel the goal because I'm going to leave caring behind. It's a perfectly good goal. There's nothing wrong with the goal. And when I complete the healing around that issue of caring, I'm going to clearly reestablish the goal to do things out of and in a way that reflects caring. The only reason I cancel the goal, it's got nothing to do with leaving anything behind but pain and trauma, generational patterns based in that. The only reason I cancel a goal, in this case the goal for caring, would be because when I load it into my mind, it resonates some form of pain in me, and the projection from the mind energy that it resonates paints a picture on the inside of my eyeballs of not caring. So I cancel the goal, not because I don't want it, not because I can't have it, not because I'm going to leave it behind, not because anybody should ever leave it behind. I cancel the goal because I recognize that when I load that goal into my mind for myself or someone else to care, that it resonates unresolved generational pain, and I want to clean that out. Once I clean it out, I'm going to right back to the goal of caring, and so now let's say I stand now as the presence of love, which means I stand fully, completely, 1,000% fulfilled as a human being, and the person in front of me says, I don't give a damn about anything you do. Now, if there's no pain in me resonated by that statement, I'm going to be a space of love. I'm going to be a space of compassion. I'm going to be a space of caring for that person. In other words, I'm going to be the space that can help to open the energy field and make it safe enough for this person to look at the part of them that, believes they cared too much and got hurt, or, whatever the dynamic is. So I'm going to become that space that can heal that dynamic. Once I've dealt with it within myself, then I'm going to be able to deal with it within my family system. You think about Mom, which I'm fantasizing this, knowing your large family system and that Italian family, and there she was slaving over a hot stove, hours and hours and hours, cooking down that pasta sauce. And do you think it mattered to her whether anybody cared or not? Or was she just the presence of love in doing that?
She was the presence of love. She would do it regardless of what any one of the kids did.
So I support you following her modeling and then resolving, forgiving that pain that comes with this idea of caring or not caring, or people who don't care.
It's starting to make sense. Thank you for that. And we did come to a solution. Well, my wife did, because she saw what was happening. But she would see me slaving in the kitchen all morning for 7 hours for 20 people, and then 15 of them would show up 6 hours late, get a Tupperware full of food, and leave. And I thought, this isn't the family celebration I wanted to create. I guess nobody cares about the family celebration anymore. So anyway, this year, and I think I get what you're saying. So I'm just going to do from a position of love regardless of how they behave, or how I see them behave or perceive them behave. Usually they're kids that are stuck on their cell phones in another world.
That's the brainwash of the culture, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And you might ask yourself the question, when you talk about your kids, you as dad, were you ever consumed by that world while they were looking for where's dad?
You mean me as dad? They were looking for me?
You as dad, were you ever consumed by that kind of busyness, that kind of engagement in the outside world when, little Billy or Johnny was sitting there at the age of 2 going, where's my daddy?
Oh, yeah, because I was a pilot, and I was always on the other side of the world.
So the modeling worked really well.
What do you mean?
I mean, they're living what they were taught, right? I'm not supposed to be here with Dad, who's slave to put this meal together to enjoy my company. I'm supposed to be off on the other side of the world, whether it's just by having my head on my phone, or I'm in my business, or I'm somewhere else. It sounds like the modeling is being played out perfectly and being fed back to. And you've heard me say it before. One of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines about children is, children like having our unconscious minds hanging out in true living color and Dolby sound. How many times do you suppose, instead of Dad being off on the other side of the world, each one of those kids wanted Daddy to be home celebrating, whatever the holiday was?
That's so true. Never thought of that. Because I'd always move Christmas to a different day. But anyway, so my wife had this idea this year. I think it's a good idea. We're a part of a club, and they have a restaurant. And when they're all in town, because some are in different towns now, they're older. I think it's next week. We're all going to meet up at a restaurant where you can sit and order, and nobody has to slave, and everybody's relaxed. And they're all responding, yay, that sounds great. So that was our temporary solution, but I am learning what you're talking about.
Okay. Do you suppose that your mom slaved?
She loved being a mom, but she worked hard.
So it was a labor of love for her.
Absolutely.
So I'd support you the next time you choose to make a meal, is you make it a labor of love, and that this whole idea of spending that 7 hours in the kitchen is slaving, which is a vibration, which is an energy, which those who are tuned to you are going to tend to respond to, and make it a labor of love.
Well, it was a labor
of love.
So nobody cared that it was there. But I get it.
But notice the conclusion. Here's the thought disorder I would offer. You might want to look at doing some healing around. Notice there's a thought disorder. Nobody cares enough to be here. That's a conclusion. And remember that the mind turns thoughts into pictures that it then paints on the inside of our eyeballs. And that thought is going to paint a picture on the inside of your eyeballs about people out there who don't care. Who don't care enough to be there, who don't care enough to take the time, who don't care enough to take the attention. And maybe the little one at 2 who went, I guess I'm not important enough for Dad to care enough to be here because he's on the other side of the world. You might give a listen to, or even while you're listening to it, download the words to the song "Cats in the Cradle."
Oh yeah,
remember that tune?
Yep, I was just thinking of that.
Cats in the cradle and the silver moon, little boy blue, and the man in the moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. And the conclusion of the song is, my boy grew up just like me.
Yep.
And now you're conscious of it, so you get a chance to heal it. Like, whoa, how cool is that?
Well, it's very cool, because it's not fun being the other way.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
All right,
well, thank you.
That helps.
Absolutely honored and delighted. Glad to be on the team, and delighted to see you decided to bypass that thought where you almost just gave up the whole shebang and said, I don't care, that you decided to go for it. And that's the kind of contribution the world needs, because too many people have gotten trapped in those thought disorders, in those dynamics of our culture. So, being a leader and the early adopter in the family who says, I'm going to change these dynamics, is what changes family systems, and every family system that changes the world, or changes themselves, changes the world. Great principle from A Course in Miracles. When you are healed, you are never healed alone. It opens the energy window. And that's a dynamic that is so desperately in need of healing throughout our whole culture today.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for having the courage to go there.
Well, thank you.
And trusting us enough with it to share it.
Absolutely. I always feel better. Thank you.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome, my friend. Glad to be on the team.
Thank you.
Be a good time to go get your hand in the Avicen and get some blood warmed up and let this whole energy that's moving right now flow through you and be flushed out with that heat.
Yeah, I just got off the Avicen, but I'm doing it 3 times a day as you recommended.
Perfect. Awesome. Very cool. Well, if I lift my hand, you can hear that little engine humming in the background. My hand's in it just about every day as we do the radio show.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good time when I'm sitting still.
It's getting rid of the neuropathy.
Cool. In terms of the neuropathy, when you started, what's that, about 3-4 weeks ago now that you started? On a scale of 1 to 10, what was the neuropathy then?
The neuropathy was a 10, but the pain was just starting. And this is what the medical doctors warned me about. Neuropathy is one thing, but when you enter into pain from the diabetes, lack of circulation, once you enter into pain, you're in serious trouble. And that's why I bought the machine, and the pain went away 100%.
Awesome. And where's the neuropathy then on that scale of 1 to 10 now?
3 or 4.
That's awesome. Nice work. My friend Patrick McGann he's a fellow naturopath, somebody I've known for over a half century. We've been friends, and he's the one who introduced me to it. And he was 74 3 years ago when he found the Avicen, and he said, "Yeah, this is great." And he told me about it. It's like, "Oh, that's nice. That's good, Patrick." And after about 4 or 5 weeks, I didn't listen to him very much in terms of what he said. After 4 or 5 weeks, he called me and said, "Michael, before I got this thing, I would get up in the morning and I'd be able to do about 2 hours work, and my feet would be in excruciating pain from the neuropathy.
Yeah.
And I'd have to go and put my feet up for the rest of the day." And at the 5-week point when he called me, and that's when I bought my first Avicen, at the 5-week point when he called me, he said, "Michael, I'm getting up now, and I'm spending 4.5 hours a day working, and I'm having aching in my feet, but I don't have to go put them up for the rest of the day." And now, 3 years later, Patrick's doing 10, 12-hour, 14-hour days on his feet with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty amazing. So that's pretty cool to go from a 10 to a 4 in 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, it's the best
Nice
thing.
work.
Thank you.
Cool. And, one of the things that diabetes is about, at the root of diabetes, as I've observed it over the years, is that one of the main energetic patterns behind diabetes in the realm of cause, in the realm of mind energy, is grief. And the processing you just did around not caring and all will tie into that grief, and that will probably be a big piece of you, totally freeing yourself of that whole diagnosis.
Yes.
Diagnosis is an interesting word. Most people haven't thought of it, but if you look at the word diagnosis, an agnostic is somebody who doesn't know, and a dyad is two who don't know. You go to most diagnosticians, you go to 10 of them, you get at least 7 different diagnoses. 2 who don't know. And when you start to look at the energy behind it and clean it out, and rather than, there's a business in the world that purports to be about healing, and it's really about creating customers and addicting customers to their product, as opposed to healing. It's called treatment, and treatment, of course, can be very valuable and very profoundly helpful, but rarely is treatment ever healing. And most people think treatment and healing are the same thing, but they're generally speaking, are two totally, completely different things. And they need to be used side by side. So, and the highest form of healing, I believe, was brought by a man, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago, when he said, here's how you remove the energetic patterns that are toxifying your tissue structure and distorting the pictures that are painted in the inside of your eyeballs. Here's how you collapse those pictures and get to those root energies and clean them out. It boggles my mind, and every time I think of it, it deepens my appreciation for what he did and what he handed us 2,000 years ago. Pretty sweet, pretty cool. And in a real level, like where we live, with our families in the kitchen, not in the church house, but in the real level of life, how impactful it is if we can get back to what he actually said.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I didn't discover your intensives down south there 25 years ago, I never would have been able to understand it, because I didn't even know what the Aramaic language was then.
Right. Yeah, in the early years when I was, I've been on the road. We're not on the road now the last 5 years, but in the early years when I was on the road, one of the things I would purposely do once I started to work with the Aramaic is I'm in a big city, and I'd find one of the big Christian bookstores, and I'd go in and ask for an Aramaic Bible, and never did anybody do any more than, kind of look at me cross-eyed and say, what are we talking about? In fact, one young man, I remember someone told him that I worked with the Aramaic, and his response, he works with the Aromatic what? Anyway, and I mean, I never found anybody that even knew, although they all profoundly proclaimed they were following the man to the letter, I never found one person who even knew what language he spoke. And virtually every key concept that he taught was lost in translation. Now, when awareness started to happen was Mel Gibson came out with the movie The Passion of Christ, and it was done in Aramaic, at least partially in Aramaic. And then when I would go into one of those bookstores, I go, oh, yeah, the Aramaic, No, we don't have any. But they at least knew, it was the language that he spoke. And it's amazing how many people in the theological world. I remember I was speaking at a Kiwanis Club meeting in Lansing, Michigan, about 38 years ago. And I was doing a presentation on the Aramaic. And there was a man who was a member of the club who's a preacher, had been a fundamental preacher for better than 50 years. And the person who introduced me to speak asked me to come and speak, introduced and set up for us to have lunch. And I started to put out some of the stuff from Yeshua in Aramaic. And this guy who had been a Bible-thumping preacher for over 50 years, when I gave him some of the, this is what the word meant as it fell out of his mouth, this guy actually said to me, I don't care what Jesus said. My Greek Bibles told me all I need to know. I was like, I just sat there. I don't know how I sat there, but I can only imagine my mouth just hung open. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. But to hear somebody who ostensibly had been representing this man for over half a century say, I don't care what he said, it's just, Phew. Bizarre.
I'm really
Just bizarre.
not surprised. I'm not surprised. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I discovered it. I'm glad you did your work to bring it to light. Because
well, I sure do feel blessed and filled with appreciation. Yeah, it changes everything.
I mean, it makes sense.
And to me, the thing that's most important about that statement is that it makes sense where we live, in our family systems, in our communities, and in our world, as opposed to inside of the church house. It makes sense. It doesn't support much of the dogma that most people are about. But the man never said, "I come to bring you dogma and doctrine." He said, "I come to bring you life more abundantly." That was the single. There it is. There was why he came. And most people are like, no, he came to. I got this dogma that I believe. I've got this doctrine. That's what's really important. No, come to bring you life. And what is life but love flowing through a cell? Anything we do that inhibits that love flowing through a cell is killing ourselves. Anything that enhances it is healing us. And forgiveness takes the load off the system. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's so simple.
Yep.
So delighted to have you rocking and rolling with it again, my friend.
Thank you, Michael, and we'll stay in touch, obviously.
All right, sir. Have a blessed one. Any other thoughts for you before we leave?
Go ahead.
I say, any other thoughts for you before we hang up?
Oh, no.
Or before we... Okay. Awesome. Standing love in your direction.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up, or do you have any thoughts to share on that conversation, sweetie? One of the thoughts that came to mind was the experience we had in Key West when you shared it with your preacher here. I don't know if you'd like to share that, but...
there was a gentleman who had sponsored us in Key West, and super nice guy, and we'd been with him for a couple of weeks, and I wasn't sure. He wasn't like way out there or obvious or anything, but I thought he's homosexual, and of course I had been raised evangelical missionary Baptist, and was taught that's terrible, that's awful, and stay away from him. And after we'd been with him for a couple of weeks, I asked him one day, we were actually doing still point breathing, and when we took an intermission, I asked him if I could talk to him, and we went and sat on the couch, and I just told him, I said, I was raised that, homosexuality was terrible, and awful, and I said, but I just want you to know, I don't, it's not my business what your lifestyle is, and I just want you to know that I really love you. I have, and of course that's not the term that we normally use, but I have love resonated in me when I am around you, and I appreciate your support and what you're doing. And when I got back home, and I actually shared that with my pastor, and I said, I now know exactly what Jesus was talking about when he said, that we were to love everyone. We didn't have to love, what they were doing, but we were to extend our love towards them regardless. And my pastor said he would pray that God would bring me down. And I was like, what? And it was just like a total shock that, you're supposed to represent, God and teach us what Jesus taught. And yet you're going to pray that God brings me down because I extend my love to another person that believes differently than what we believe. And it's like, Jesus went to, he didn't go to the ones that were necessarily following him and believing in him. He went to the people that others referred to as sinners. But,
and he functioned as love.
Yep.
In every case. And that's like our real job description. And it's interesting, in Aramaic, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. So if there's somebody that you think about in your world, past, present, future, imagine, or maybe look at in the mirror, then you've broken the first law. You've given up your human life, love, for some thought disorder in your mind that was very often implanted by somebody in one of these buildings of churchianity. There's so much hostility and fear and fear-mongering and threat, all in the name of the effort to establish each and every one of us as a human being in our own body-mind units, on our own family systems, in our own communities, and to inspire us or teach us how, if we hold anything based in hostility or fear, how to remove those energetic patterns of hostility or fear so that we get to show up. Whatever the party is. I mean, the most urgent place to follow that first law is where the most dastardly, nasty, evil, ugly, wicked, whatever words you want to come up with, parties going on, that you show up as the human life that brings healing to everyone. And that's the bottom line of this work. And to remember that if I can't show up as love for it, it's my work, not theirs. And my mind will paint a picture. Remember, if I live in denial, and I say this one over and over, maybe you think, geez, Michael, when are you ever going to stop saying that? Never. Because of the mind of man in us goes totally against this. But when I live in denial, when I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I have to hide or dissociate from the diseased part of myself that's producing that inside of me. When I hide from it, the person I'm blaming for it, I'm literally building the picture that's drawn on the inside of my eyeballs of them out of my unresolved pain. That's what led Paul at a moment of insight to say, beware you who judge another, for that in which you judge another, you have been guilty of practicing. And how many times have we seen that happen? The preacher's up there railing against the prostitute, railing against the homosexual, railing against the thief, and then when we finally get a look in the back room, what's he doing? Prostitute, homosexuality, theft, infidelity. We rail against what we haven't resolved. If we've resolved whatever it is in us, then we bring the presence of love to the conversation and can then assist people to access, undo, and delete or forgive the thought disorders that produce that particular picture painted on the inside of our eyeballs. But the mind of man is so tricky. So tricky. And it has this amazing, amazing characteristic. It takes thoughts and turns them into pictures. And if I have a thought disorder that I'm not willing to be responsible for, it's going to turn up in my perceptual construct as a picture. I'll think that the picture is a picture of something out there, but really it's a picture that's painted on the inside of my eyeballs that I lay over top of whoever's out there. It's called externalization. So if I hold a thought disorder that I'm not willing to be responsible for, and I hide it in my brain's image of someone else, then I'm going to have a whole procession of people who will show up doing that very thing. Beware you who judge another, for that in which you judge another, you are projecting the mind energy you have unresolved in you into your brain's image of them. And then, for this man to have the genius to know how to collapse those pictures is just, to me, like, talk about gratitude city. that he brought that, and then, for me, Gratitude City, that I happened to trip across the Aramaic 40-some years ago and become totally captivated by it. What a gift. So pretty awesome, and while we're talking about Bill, Jeanie, let's just take a moment and extend love in his direction. I haven't talked to Bill in a couple of years. We need to give him a call and say hello.
Absolutely. And we have 2 hands up. However, we've also got Bob from Australia in the chat room, and you were talking about diagnosis. He said Western medicine is telling him that he may have bowel or prostate cancer. And he's started his own protocol with baking soda, molasses, and also using CDS. And he said, I just had an energetic healing session. No fear here.
Awesome. So, Bob, we hold the space, and you've heard me talk before about regulatory speech. And so I'd invite you to consider maybe doing some worksheets on fear. Because, of course, if there were no fear, if there was total confidence, then the words, the regulatory speech would be in the arena of, oh, total confidence, it's all taken care of. But the fact that, Shakespeare gave us a clue how it works. He says, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. So just from you speaking, I'd offer there probably would be some good work to do on fear, and maybe generational pattern, who knows. But I'd suggest a worksheet or 2 in that direction might uncover some things, and to bring everything into the next highest state of alignment. And we'll hold the space for you. Thanks for sharing with us. Thanks for being around the show for so long and hanging out with us. I know you get up at something like
Absolutely.
4 in the morning to hear from us. Go ahead, Jeanie.
He has started a local support group called On the Mend, except it's spelled MEN''D.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, well, let's
Fabulous.
take our next caller. We have 2 hands up. The next caller, though, is 610. I believe that's Miss Susan.
Hi, guys. This will be short. Jeanie, I just wanted to say you had that discussion with your pastor, and then what did you do? What happened?
I left the church. They also,
okay.
Yeah. I had previously, this was before I met Michael, and I was already in the questioning space of, do I really believe what I say I believe, or because I've been told all my life this is what you believe? And so I was already in that state before I met Michael, and I had gone through a divorce after 24 years of marriage, and they basically told me that I needed to go back. It didn't matter if it was, hellacious or whatever, that, I would get my reward in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was already kind of discouraged with the church, because also I was part of the church when it was first formed, and I was the clerk, not paid, and the secretary. I taught children's class, I taught the adult class, I sang in the choir. I mean, all of these
things. That sounds like you,
and,
Jeanie.
and then when I got a divorce, it was like nobody would talk to me. And it's like I'm the same person that was doing all this service in church, that you turn your back on me because I did something you don't believe in. And, so I was already kind of in a state with them. And then when he said that, it was like, okay, never mind, I don't need this.
Good work.
Well, one of the other things that comes into the picture, Jeanie, that I think about as you talk about all the service that you did at the church, is that there was one class that you taught, a kids class, and there was a handicapped man in it, mentally handicapped, and that they stopped you from teaching that class because you were a woman and you weren't allowed to teach a man. It was like another piece of the puzzle for me. That was just like, are you kidding me?
It was, my mom and I were two of the few people that did sign language. And in the church services, I usually signed the songs, and she would sign the preaching. But then I signed in the deaf Sunday school class. And it was okay as long as it was women and there were children. But when this man, and I mean, he actually had the mentality of about a 9 or 10-year-old, but because he was in a man's body, and they said women can't teach men. And the class actually dissolved because nobody else was willing to teach it. And Mom being a woman as well, you know, she wasn't allowed either. So it was like they just dissed a whole community that couldn't hear out of a silly belief that they had. So,
did your mom leave too?
No, Mom was still at that church until the day she passed. She was church secretary at that time. And
wow. Okay. What an amazing story.
Although if she'd had her druthers, that preacher would have been long gone.
Yeah, she did. She actually, I found, after she passed away, I found a letter that she wrote to the church saying that they needed to get rid of him, but she never gave it to them.
Wow. Okay, thanks. Go for your next caller. I just wanted to find out what happened.
Okay, thank you.
All right, young lady, you have a blessed one. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Bob just wrote in the chat room, he does have trust in his own process. And the men-D on the men group is based on his belief that by sharing our stories, we help to heal each other. Everyone holds a piece of the puzzle. And he says his only fear that he's experiencing is that which has been radiated by the practitioners. I'm glad I have strong boundaries.
Nice work, sir.
Yeah. Okay, our next caller is area code 541. I believe this is Belinda. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
I'm out. I must have accidentally pushed the button because I'm out in the garden doing some gardening work. And how are you?
Good. I just came in from gardening to do the show, and when I'm finished, I'm back out there getting to plant a cover crop on our new garden. That's my project for this afternoon, is finishing spreading some soil, and so I'll join you in the garden in a little while.
All right. Well, blessings, and I'm really enjoying these broadcasts. I find being quiet enough to get discerning about what is mine to share and what is mine to just lap up and enjoy myself. I'm working on all this. My brother is very, very ill, and so I want to support him in every way I can, and his approach to who Jesus was and what he did and stuff, and mine are radically different. And I really appreciate what Dr. Tim read in Chapter 4 of The Way of Mastery today, because reminding me that we all have our individual path back home, and that it's not about my brother getting it, about the Aramaic gospel. It's about being love and seeing the love in him and supporting him in whatever best way I can. And if his spiritual journey, and his perceptions are in belief and mine are not, that's irrelevant, because I'm not in charge of his spiritual growth, and he's not in charge of mine. And it's sweet to have such a loving relationship that we do. And of course, I want him to live forever, right? and I think he's just about ready to go. So that's my work to do, so that I can support him.
Have you given him permission?
Give him permission, yeah.
Have you given him permission?
I haven't verbally, And that's good that you say that.
It might be a powerful conversation.
He's always been my support group. Yeah.
Big brother?
Yep.
Well, breathing with you through that and what it brings up, and I'd invite you to maybe do some work around loss and death, and, reaching out as a presence of love with permission for whatever his next step is might be the very presence of love that gives him a hand back to life. You never know what direction that's going to go.
Right.
So,
yep.
So holding a space to breathe through that one.
Yeah, so that he can see himself as the depth of the ocean and not just that little bit of foam on the tip of the wave, like all of us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, blessings.
Breathing with you.
All right. Thank you. Blessings. And Aria's guest is on its way today, hopefully.
Oh, well, she'll be thrilled.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll text you, Jeanie, on the incidentals. I wasn't able to get to the Christmas sale this year, so fortunately I gathered some little trinkets and little special things that I liked, my little girl liked, right? And hopefully there'll be something that will resonate for her.
Sweet. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Blessings.
Keep
holding
trucking.
the space.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yep. Holding the space. All right. Take care. Such a huge issue to let go of the emotional attachments that we have to people, to be able to offer one of the things that the presence of actual human life, love, offers to others is liberty to move into one's own choices. Remember, back about 20 years ago, we had a woman in intensive who was in her 70s. And her son, she lived in Missouri, and her son was a truck driver, and he was somewhere out in California, somewhere out west, and had an accident, was killed. And she got in a car and drove out there to the scene where the accident occurred. And she actually found a shirt that belonged to him. This had been years before the intensive. And she held onto that shirt like it was him. It was like her link to him. And in the intensive, and I don't remember how many years later, but many years later in the intensive, she was doing a mind shifter that brought up her son's passing. And as she was writing, her son took over her hand and wrote to her, asking her to get rid of that shirt, because by holding on to it, she was making him earthbound. So he actually wrote in, as she was doing a mind shifter that brought up his passing, wrote and asked her to get rid of it and liberate him, free him, because he was actually, that energy was keeping him locked into the earth and he couldn't go on to his next step. So, just feedback. And my offering is that when someone passes, our pain is not about their passing. Our pain is about what's unresolved in us about death itself, or what's unresolved in us with that person. And when we resolve that, the pain disappears. And it turns into sweetness. So holding a space for you to have sweetness at every instant of your life for the rest of eternity, appreciating you for being with us.